Somewhere in the waters off Midway Atoll, beneath more than 2 miles of Pacific darkness, the wreck of a warship that rewrote the rules one last time before she burned waits in silence. The Imperial Japanese Navy carrier Hiryū, the Flying Dragon, was the only Japanese carrier at Midway with her island superstructure built on the port side instead of starboard, a design choice that marked her as different from the moment she left the slipway. On June 4, 1942, after watching 3 of her sister carriers consumed by fire and explosions, Hiryū launched a counterstrike that crippled the USS Yorktown and forced the American crew to abandon ship. Hours later, American dive bombers found her, and by the next morning, she was gone, taking 389 men and Rear Admiral Tamon Yamaguchi to the bottom. Here is the question that has haunted searchers for decades. If 3 of the 4 Japanese carriers lost that day were found in 2019, why does Hiryū remain hidden in over 17,000 feet of water? And what will her wreck reveal about those final desperate hours when she fought alone against the entire American strike force? Unlike her sister ships, which sank relatively close to where they were struck, Hiryū drifted for hours after the scuttling order was given, carried by currents that left no certain record. Finding Hiryū means understanding why she drifted so far, what damage patterns her hull might reveal, and whether the tactical decisions made in her final hours can teach us anything about carrier vulnerability. Somewhere in a debris field that could span miles, the Flying Dragon waits for someone to solve the puzzle of her final resting place. A quick word before we continue. Subscribing is the easiest way to support the channel. It helps us dedicate more time to uncovering these sunken stories and preserving maritime history for everyone who loves the sea. Now back to the video. After catastrophic incidents from 1934 to 1935 exposed design flaws in Japanese warships, Hiryū was modified from her original Soryu-class plans with structural reinforcements. When she was launched on November 16, 1937, and commissioned on July 5, 1939, Hiryū displaced 17,300 tons standard and 20,165 tons at full load. Her length at the waterline measured 222 meters, and she was powered by geared steam turbines generating 153,000 horsepower through 4 screws, giving her a maximum speed of 34.5 knots. She could carry 64 operational aircraft, a mix of Mitsubishi A6M0 fighters, Aichi D-3A Val dive bombers, and Nakajima B-5 and Kate torpedo bombers. But the detail that set her apart visually was that portside island, a feature she shared only with the carrier Akagi. Japanese doctrine experimented with alternating configurations to improve traffic flow when carriers operated in pairs. The raised forecastle and strengthened hull that came from those 1930s lessons were supposed to make her more survivable than earlier designs. Over the following months, Hiryū participated in operations supporting the Japanese invasion of French Indochina and the blockade of southern China. In April 1942, she was part of the Indian Ocean Raid, where the Kido Butai hunted British naval forces and struck Ceylon, sinking the heavy cruisers HMS Cornwall and HMS Dorsetshire, along with the carrier HMS Hermes. By early June 1942, the Flying Dragon had participated in every major operation of the Pacific War's opening 6 months. At 10:40 in the morning, 18 Aichi D-3A Val dive E bombers and 6 A6M0 fighters launched from Hiryū's deck, guided toward the American carriers by reconnaissance reports. They found USS Yorktown, and at 12:20 in the afternoon, they put 3 bombs into her flight deck, igniting fires and knocking out her boilers. Yamaguchi launched a second strike at 12:45 in the afternoon, this time 10 Nakajima B-5N Kate torpedo bombers with 60 escorts. At 2:40 in the afternoon, they put 2 torpedoes into Yorktown's port side, and the flooding was too severe. Captain Elliot Buckmaster gave the order to abandon ship at 3 in the afternoon. At approximately 5 in the afternoon, dive bombers from USS Enterprise spotted Hiryū and her escorts. 4 1,000-pound bombs struck the carrier in rapid succession. The bombs punched through and detonated in the hangar bay, where armed and fueled aircraft were being prepared for a third strike. The explosions touched off aviation gasoline, torpedoes, and bomb magazines in a cascade of secondary blasts. The forward section of the flight deck collapsed into the hangar, and fires spread toward the stern. By midnight, it was clear that Hiryū could not be saved. Yamaguchi, who had commanded the 2nd Carrier Division and whose flagship this was, refused evacuation. Captain Tomeo Kaku also chose to remain aboard. At 2:30 in the morning on June 5th, the order was given to abandon ship. Japanese destroyers Kazagumo and Yugumo closed in and fired torpedoes to scuttle the burning hulk. Hiryū slipped beneath the surface around 9:12 in the morning, bow first, her stern rising briefly before the ocean claimed her. She took 389 men with her, including Yamaguchi and Kaku, who were last seen on the bridge as the water rose. The confirmation process will rely on a checklist of features that no other ship in that area could match. The first and most distinctive is Hiryū's portside island superstructure. No other Japanese carrier at Midway shared that feature. The hull length of 222 meters at the waterline can be measured from sonar imagery or from a visual survey with a remotely operated vehicle, ROV. Damage patterns will tell the story of her final hours. Bomb impacts should be concentrated on the forward section of the flight deck, with evidence of catastrophic internal explosions in a collapsed deck structure, as witnesses described. If the scuttling torpedoes broke her apart, there should be evidence of hull breaching below the waterline near amidships or toward the stern. The debris field will likely contain identifiable aircraft components, possibly including fragments of Aichi D-3A dive bombers or Nakajima B-5N torpedo bombers that were caught in the hangar when the bombs hit. Hull markings could provide direct identification. Comparative analysis with Soryu, her sister ship already located and photographed, will help distinguish structural differences introduced during Hiryū's modification phase. Official confirmation will come through cross-referencing with Japanese naval records held by the National Institute for Defense Studies in Tokyo and United States Navy archival photographs taken during and after the battle. Finding Hiryū would complete the archaeological record of the most strategically important naval battle in the Pacific War. Hiryū's wreck will show whether the structural reinforcements added after the 1930s incidents made any difference when catastrophic damage overwhelmed her, and whether the scuttling torpedoes behaved as intended or if she broke apart during the drift. From a scientific perspective, studying all 4 carriers at extreme depth allows researchers to compare how marine organisms colonize wrecks in the deepest reaches of the Pacific and whether fuel oil and munitions pose ongoing environmental risks after 8 decades. For the families of the 389 men who went down with her, particularly the descendants of Rear Admiral Yamaguchi and Captain Kaku, finding the wreck offers a measure of closure and a place to honor their sacrifice. The ship's location would also provide tactical historians with data on drift patterns and damage progression that can improve our understanding of carrier vulnerability. Lessons that remain relevant even in an age of modern naval aviation. Under international maritime law and the policies of both the United States and Japan, Hiryū is a war grave, and her hull and the men within it are protected from disturbance. The Sunken Military Craft Act prohibits salvage operations and requires that any discovery be treated with the solemnity owed to a final resting place. The 389 men who went down with the Flying Dragon, including 2 senior officers who chose to die with their ship, deserve remembrance without spectacle. Their courage in those final hours, launching strikes against a superior force and then facing the end with discipline, represents something that transcends nationalism or the geopolitics of 1942. It represents the cost of war, the weight of command, and the reality that beneath the strategic narratives and tactical analyses, there are always young men who never came home. Hiryū waits in the darkness not as a trophy to be recovered, but as a monument to everyone who served aboard her and a reminder that victory and defeat both exact a price measured in human lives.